Hey guys, this is your boy Jehuty here with another Tekken 7 video. This is a much requested one on how to deal with Kunimitsu. First up is you gotta know that this is a guide for beginner and intermediate level of play, so we're not really covering everything. We're just covering the basics. However, this video turned out longer than expected, so here are the timestamps to the areas which you want to skip to. Of course, I'll also leave that in the description. Without further ado, let's get into it. So first launcher is during Kanton 3-2. So you press 1+2 to get into Kanton Stance, just so that you know. And yeah, this launcher is a mid-mid. Sometimes surprises people because it looks like she's done with the first move. However, she is a -16 when she does this, so she is launch punishable by most of the cast, if not the whole cast. The move in itself is also steppable, but in general I wouldn't really advise stepping Kuni, but you'll see that later on. So next up is down forward 2. And other characters have a generic version of this that's safe, but Kunimitsu, just like Safina, have their own version of this, and it's unsafe at -12, so you can punish that. Despite how the animation looks, you can even punish it with a 10 frame punish. The distance isn't really that much. Now we have out of Backturn forward 1+2, comes out at 16 frames. Now this move doesn't have a lot of distance, however it fairly tracks to both sides. But it is -12 on block, so you can punish it. It doesn't have a lot of pushback, so even a jab punish at 10 frames will also do the job. I'll talk more about the Backturn Stance in the philosophy part. Now we have the Hiryu, the up back 3+4. Now this move comes out at 19 frames. However, what you need to know about this launcher is -17, so it is launch punishable, and that is the way to go. You can also step it fairly well to both sides. However, launch punishing it is the way to go instead. Why you see this move so often is that it has evasive properties. So when you're not expecting it, they like to throw this one out because in the right frames it crushes both lows and highs, so keep that in mind. So now we have her hop kick, or better said her doppel hop knee kick. Now this is a hop kick, so of course it comes out at 15 frames and it is -13 regardless of which of the kicks it is. However, she can play mind games by just throwing out one and then have you guessing if she's going to throw out the second one as well. It is a hop kick, so it is steppable to both directions, so keep that in mind as well. So next up we have forward 3+4 into 2. This is a kind of slow move. However, it is launch punishable because she is at -17. However, what you need to keep in mind when you're not familiar with Kunimitsu is that if the move hits, she has a different animation than when it actually is blocked. So just watch out for that when you're punishing it. It's also steppable, but not really reliably, and then she's too far away, so rather block it. Now we have forward, neutral, down, down, forward 2. Pretty good launcher if you ask me. However, you won't be seeing it that much on beginner ranks because of the execution demands. It is -17 and therefore launch punishable on block. What you need to keep in mind is that just like with the other move, if it's blocked, she won't transition into the second hit, so you'll have to like get a feel for it. Next up is something that comes out of While Rising, so While Rising 3. This move comes out at 15 frames. It has fairly good tracking to both sides, however not much of it goes forward, so you can outspace it. It is -13, so make sure you punish it accordingly. You don't normally see this outside of punishing launch punishable lows that you throw out. However, you now and then see it from cheeky Kuni players, so make sure to like just punish that. Now let's talk counter hit launchers. First up is during Kanton 4-2, the second hit specifically. If it connects as a counter hit, she gets a full launcher. However, people mainly use this because the second hit is safe and not really as a counter hit fishing tool. All what you need to know for now about this, and not the other mix-up out of the stance, is that the second hit is high and is duckable. And that is regardless of whether the first hit connects or not, which is a low. Whatever you're doing, just duck right after you get hit by the first move and then launch punish it if she follows through. Now let's look at two counter hit launchers out of her dash-in stance, her Setsunagake Stance. So the first option is the 2. This move is safe at -9 and it tracks both ways, so both left and right. You can try to like outspace it a bit, but it becomes difficult because the dash-in really closes the distance. What I recommend is now and then, don't be too predictable with it. Block it and then use a generic down 4 to like keep her in check. Don't just use it too often though. So the thing is that the second move, the Setsunagake 3, complements this one very nicely. So the Setsunagake 3 is a dash slide in, which is a low and on counter hit grants Kunimitsu a full launcher. It is minus 16 on block, so it can be launch punished by most of the cast. And it tracks very well to the left, and you have to be very specific with your timing if you want to sidewalk it to the right. So just keep that in mind. What you also need to know is that the move actually on hit is neutral. It doesn't do that much damage and it's neutral, so it means 0, you and your opponent at 0. That means that it's anybody's turn next. It's actually not Kunimitsu's turn as it may seem. So just keep that in mind with this move. Now we have up forward 2. This move is similar to the one from Yoshimitsu. On counter hit, this gives Kuni a launcher. What you also need to know that it's unlike Yoshimitsu's, it's actually blockable, so it's minus 14 on block. Some characters can launch punish it, most won't be able to, and you can backdash it. The move can be a bit of a problem, but just like with Yoshimitsu, it takes a bit of time to like get used to it by seeing the animation multiple times. Now we have Jehuty Musasabi 2. It's a low out of her flip stance, which on counter it gives her a full launcher. However, it is minus 18 on block, so it is launch punishable by the entire cast. It is also very telegraphed due to that teleporting mist, especially because she only has one more option out of this, the Jehuty Musasabi 4, which is that flip into a kick, but she doesn't teleport in it, so you should use that to your advantage to identify this move and punish it. So first thing you need to know is that you step Kuni in the general direction of right. However, as we've seen, many of her moves realign her with the opponent. So unless you know specific moves which you want to sidestep, don't be just sidestepping right all the time. Next up are Kunimitsu's jabs. Kunimitsu players really like to throw out jabs to like condition the opponent to block. And of course, I mean, the move is +1 on block. So don't let a Kunimitsu player disrespect you. Make sure you're also keeping them in check with a generic down 4 and some backdashing to get out of that pressure. Now we have 1-2-2. On intermediate level of play you don't see this move that much, but on beginner level you definitely see it often. It is minus 12 on block, but the more important thing is that the last hit is duckable. So if you're quick enough, you can just duck it. I would also advise, if you're blocking it, use a 10 frame punish instead of a 12 frame punish, because the animation window is very short, so you may miss it and then also get punished yourself. Now I want you to focus on the animation of the move 1-1, not the different extensions which can come out of it, just the 1-1. It's important, especially the second hit, because you use that to differentiate all of these moves which come out of it from her other jab pressures. First extension is the 1-1-1, and what I want you to take note of is that Kuni comes in from the top when she reappears, and that's your cue to know that this move is punishable. It's minus 11. However, because the block frames are a bit short, I'd advise you, if you're not so sure, to punish with a 10 frame punisher. Next up is the 1-1-2, and what I want you to take note of here is that she comes in from below when she reappears, and that's your cue to know that this move is safe. It's minus 9 on block. So there's not much you can do here, but you can occasionally keep her in check by doing a generic down 4. Of course, this move and the previous one both track to the left and to the right. Now the last one here for you to keep in mind is the 1-1-4. And this one comes out a bit slower, however it leaves Kuni at +3 on block. So you're at a disadvantage, so do not retaliate immediately after this move. And then the other thing is, people say it's reactable, however when you're being mixed up with the other two variants, as a beginner and even as an intermediate, it's quite difficult. So rather block this and don't retaliate, just try to backdash afterwards. As an option select for all three options, if your character has a good enough power crush, you'd have to try it out with your character to see if it covers all three options. You could just power crush your way through all of this. So yeah, that's also a possibility. Now we have forward 2-3. Now this is a high string, and what I want you to do is burn in the animation of the first hit. The elbow which comes out Once you get used to that, then you know the cue to duck the second hit, and of course launch punish it. It takes time, just try, keep it at it, and repeat. Eventually you'll get it down. So now we have down, forward, 1, 2, 2. Now this string used to be very problematic for me, and the reason is that in a match the flames cover you so you don't actually see what's happening. What's happening is that your character is being put in a crouch state. So keep that in mind, your character is in a crouch state and the move is actually -14 on block. So some characters will be able to launch punish it, if not, use a while rising move that is 14 frames or faster. So we already briefly covered the Kanton Stance under launchers and counter launchers, so if you want to refresh your memory you can go to those. All what you really need to know about this stance is that one move is a mid-mid and it's launch punishable. It's a bit deceptive with the second hit, and then the other one is a low-high, so even if you get hit by the first low you can still duck the second high. Apart from that, Kuni really doesn't have much in this stance that is threatening to you. Some transitions to other stances, some fake outs as well, but nothing really threatening. The only move I'd still like to mention here is Kanton 2. So this move is kind of deceptive. First up, pay attention to the actual hit animation. It looks like she's doing a low, but it's actually a mid, and it's -11 on block. The other thing is that it looks like you're being pushed back, but in reality you aren't, and it looks like Kuni is recovering in a low state, but even a high will connect, so just keep that in mind. So we already covered the Setsunagake Stance a bit. It's the forward dash via means of forward 3. So if you want to refresh your memory, you can go back to counter hit launchers and have a look at that. And then what we have are these jab pressure strings out of the stance. But in reality, they're just the same moves we already covered in the pressure, under the philosophy pressure part. You can just look at that. There's nothing really new to these moves. They're the same ones. You deal with them the same way. The only new thing we really have here is the during Setsunagake 1, 2, 3, and this leaves Kuni at -4. So effectively she's giving up her turn. So let's keep that in mind. When you see this, it means it's your turn. It can be sidewalked to the right, however the timing is kind of strict. And given her other mix-up options out of this, I'd recommend you just rather block it and then take your turn afterwards. Next up, let's look at something that can be a bit problematic for some, and that's her throw game out of the stance. She only has access to 2 throws out of the stance, so keep that in mind. The first one is a 1+2 break, and it's the primary one you're going to see, or even on intermediate level, but also on beginner level a bit. The other one is a 1 break, and the move is executed by pressing 1+4. And this one, you're not going to see that often because of the input. So keep that in mind. These are the 2 throws you should be watching out of the stance, mainly the first one. So now let's look at the throws by themselves, out of neutral, so not out of the stances. Of course, they're broken the same way. However, I want you to pay close attention to the grab animation for the up, forward, 1+2. To some people, this looks like a 1 break and not a 1+2 break, so you'll have to get used to that. There's no way around it. Now the second one, the forward 1+4, pay close attention to the animation. You can also see her right leg come forward whilst her left leg comes forward. Do not be deceived by the leg, just pay attention to the left hand coming out, and that's your cue to break it with a 1. It'll take a bit of getting used to since it's a custom animation, but yeah, keep at it and you'll get there. So now let's talk about Kunimitsu's Backturn Stance. She can go into Backturn manually by pressing back 3+4, but you'll most likely see it more as transitions from other moves. Yeah, we have these pressure strings, which I've already talked about, and you just have to refer to the pressure philosophy of pressure part to get a refresher. She has access to the same ones, we've already covered that. And then we also have the one which she has out of Backturn 2, 3. And yeah, this we've also covered in the pressure part. The second one is a low. You'll have to get used to the animation and then you'll know to duck it. Now, I just quickly want to bring up this move during Backturn 1+2. It's -2, so it's safe. I'm just mentioning it because I used to try to punish it. I see a lot of people try to punish it. It's safe. Next move is during Backturn down 2. And this somewhat has a bit of a distance. It tracks slightly well to both sides. It's minus 13 on block, so some characters will be able to launch punish it. And then we have during back turn down 4. This, despite its animation, doesn't track well to the right, so it can be sidewalked to the right. Yeah, but it's also minus 14 on block, so keep that in mind. And the last thing I want to mention is her throw game out of back turn. So she has access to her generic throws, but she also has access to a 1+2 break throw out of this stance. So now once again, this is specifically the throw which I'm talking about, the 1+2 break. So during back turn 1+4, that is the animation. And then yeah, it's throw break, so it'll take some time till you get it down. Practice makes perfect, don't be discouraged if it takes a while. And then I wish you all the best with that. So now what I'm showing you in the background is a series of different moves or strings that Kunimitsu can cancel by pressing back and entering into Backturn Stance. And the reason I'm showing this to you is that I want you to know some of her options which she has that she can get into this backturn state. So maybe later on you come and even watch this part a second time so that you just know some of the options. It's not all of them, but most of them. And in the meantime, I'll be telling you that the stance in itself is actually not as scary as you think it is. Your best friend here is actually a very quick mid that is also safe on block. And many characters have a generic down forward 1 to keep people in check, and so the idea is when Kunimitsu does a move and she transitions into backturn and she's close to you, you can use this to lock out all her other options. So it'll lock out her lows, her highs, her mids, and also even her grabs. And if she decides to block, you're still safe, so you don't risk anything. So just keep that in mind. So now the other situation is when she goes into backturn and she's not that close to you. What you want to do here is that you want to backdash immediately, preferably Korean backdash, or if your character has inbuilt backward movement, you can also utilize that. Why you want to use this is that you want her moves to whiff. And if they whiff, you can also launch punish them. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and that about covers her backturn stance. So now I have various different moves that couldn't fit into a specific category, like the Lowsweep and Unblockable, but let's start off with Kunimitsu's projectile attack. The thing you have to know about this move is that it's quite different from all the other projectile attacks, and that is it cannot be sidestepped, it needs to be sidewalked. However, you don't want to sidestep this, you actually want to block it, and the reason for that is, unlike Noctis, when she teleports in, she's not safe. She's at minus 11, however you need to get the timing a bit down and the feeling for it. And the other thing you should take away is that at max range, at peak range, when she throws it out, she just teleports about half of the screen, so she's still safe when she does that. And then now I want to talk about the Unblockable. There's not much I can say about this, the forward 1+2. You have to condition yourself to duck this. So when you see the sparks and everything, you have to condition yourself to duck low and then launch punish this. You also see this at the ending of her 10-hit combo, so I'm just showing that here so you know that as well. Now she has another Unblockable, which is up 1+2, and this move comes out somewhat fast, however it doesn't have much range and it doesn't really track. So what Kunimitsu can do is that she can mix it up together with up 3+4, which has a bit more range, however that move is also steppable, so your option select will be to sidewalk both of them. Now we have forward 4-2. Now despite this looking safe, this move is actually minus 17, so do not allow yourself to be disrespected. Launch punish this move. Next up we have back 3-4. What you need to know about this move is that it baits you into going to her. So after this move is blocked, maybe you dash in a bit but block and don't really go in completely because it's a trap mostly. Then we have down forward 3-2. It's a mid-low option, and the low is actually quite seeable, and if you block it, it's minus 15, so it can be launch punished by most of the cast. But what she can also do is that she can hold down and cancel it into a crouch stance, and this is where the sweep mostly comes out. So let me get into the sweep. So in full crouch, she can execute this move, and it gives her a guaranteed forward 2 follow-up. So mostly when you see her going into crouch and she's close to you, you should be expecting this move. There's not much I can tell you. you can condition yourself to react to it, but it's quite difficult. But if you anticipate it, you should be able to block it and launch punish it because it staggers. Now we have the 3+4 move and its repetitions of it. It's mostly a move you see on beginner ranks at the end of a round. And why you see this move is that in the right frames it has low and high crushing properties. However, you shouldn't fear this move. It recovers quite slow, so after you see it recover, you can actually just launch punish it. So that about covers everything for Kunimitsu. In summary, a lot of Kunimitsu's pressure is fake. Make sure you do not get disrespected by a Kuni, keep her in check. She's steppable to the right, so preferably side walkable. However, many of her moves realign her with you, so keep that in mind. So a lot of her stances are really not that scary. As long as you're not pressing buttons in the dash-in stance, you won't get counter hit launched. And then the other two stances, the Kanton Stance, there's really nothing which she can threaten you with, and if she comes in with a low, you know immediately to duck the high and launch punish it. Her Backturn Stance can be either outspaced or kept in check with a generic down forward 1. So yeah, this is your boy Jehuty, and I thank you very much for watching this video till to the end. I'd like to give a big shout out to Rio Gomez PT and Eston Nox from the subreddit, from the Tekken subreddit, for giving me a couple of pointers. Of course, if you like this video, leave a like. I also appreciate if you give me feedback in the comment section, and I'd really appreciate a subscription because that's what helps me the most. Anyway, this is your boy Jehuty, and I'm out.